republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting in December 12th, 2022. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Are there any corrections that you see to the minutes? Having no corrections, I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes be accepted as written. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Hey, we heard you. Ayes carry it. We've got consideration from the public. Cheney, did anybody approach you that they wanted to talk?
We had none.
None? Okay, thank you. We're going to redo the schedule a little bit. We've got open meeting law and parliamentary procedure training so that she doesn't have to sit through the rest of old business and new business and all of that. We're going to put her up first. For everybody that, I think everybody knows you, Annie, but the meeting's yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chair, Commissioners, for having me today. This is your annual open meeting law training. Some of you are very familiar with it. Some of you, the newer commissioners, it might be a good reminder for you. So again, like Mr. Amspoker said, I am Annie Meredith. I'm your city clerk for the city of Kingman. And I'm going to go through this material pretty quickly, but if you have any questions, just feel free to stop me and ask me as we go along. You don't have to wait until the end. So what is open meeting law? It is the public policy of the state that meetings of public bodies be conducted openly and that notices and agendas be provided for such meetings, which contain such information as is reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. Toward this end, any person or entity charged with interpretations of this law shall construe any provision of this law in favor of open and public meetings. All meetings of any public body shall be public, and all persons so desiring shall be permitted to attend and listen to the deliberations and proceedings. Basically, it just means that the public's business has to be conducted in public. Why does it matter? It protects the public. It preserves their right to participate in government. It protects you and it maintains the integrity of our government and ensures a better informed citizenry, and it builds trust between us and the community. Who must comply with open meeting law? That is each and every one of you. I like to make sure that everybody understands it's you as an individual commissioner, not necessarily you as an advisory commission member. When an open meeting law complaint comes in, any penalties or anything associated with that is on you as the individual and anybody else that is involved in that complaint. Public body is defined as the legislature, all boards and commissions of this state or political subdivision, all standing, special, or advisory committees, or any subcommittees that you guys may appoint at your need. It does include our quasi-judicial bodies like our Board of Appeals and our Building Board of Adjustments. And then subcommittees is any committee that you guys designate to study on or work on a specific matter for the commission. What constitutes a meeting? That's the gathering in person or through technological devices of a quorum of the members of your public body at which you discuss, propose, or take legal action, including any deliberations by a quorum with respect to such action. The quorum is a majority of your members, and vacancies do not reduce that quorum. You guys don't have any vacancies at this time, but should you have a vacancy, that would not reduce your quorum. You're a 7-member commission, and that means that 4 or more is your quorum, is what starts your quorum. This is not an exhaustive list, but we do list here some of the technological ways that you could potentially engage in a meeting. Email is probably the biggest one. If you are sent an email and it comes from staff or your recording secretary, you want to make sure that you do not hit reply all. As soon as you hit reply all and it goes out to 4 or more of your commissioners, that could be an open meeting law violation. As well as you want to refrain from directly emailing the whole commission as a commissioner as well. The better practice would be if you have something you'd like to share with your fellow commissioners, have staff send that out for you. There are other instances where maybe somebody would post something on social media, on Facebook or Twitter, and somebody from the commission hops on and makes a comment, somebody else hops on and makes a comment, somebody else hops on and makes a comment. As soon as you hit 4 people, then that's also an open meeting law violation, because you now have a quorum of your commission discussing something on a messaging platform. So it's best that you just refrain from doing that if at all possible. Splintering a quorum. So if 2 of you get together for lunch and you're talking about something the commission is working on, and then you guys go your separate ways and you talk to 2 other people about that same conversation, then you have now splintered your quorum. And so really the best practice is just to make sure that any commission discussions happen in your meetings. No meeting can take place with less than 24 hours notice to the general public and each member of the public body. For the city of Kingman, our posting requirements are on our website, out in front of the city complex building, and then also at our engineering building. And that is a requirement that is set by state statute. Our agendas have to have the date, time, and location of the meeting. It has to have a list of specific matters to be discussed, considered, or decided. And they have to contain such information as reasonable necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. So on our agendas, you'll see that we put like a little summary. Further into the agenda on the council communication or the commission communication, there's generally a larger summary from staff, but that little blurb that you see on the face of the agenda, that is what we are required to put out to make sure that the public has a general understanding of what's going to be discussed. Only items specifically listed on the agenda can be discussed, considered, or decided. If it's not on the agenda, it cannot be discussed. If a matter is not specifically listed, then the better practice is to ask for it to be brought or agendized for a future meeting. You want to make sure that you don't have squirrel too far off from a topic to avoid an open meeting law violation. And if there's something that sparks interest or reminds you of something else that you wanted to bring forth to the commission or to staff, it's best just to have it placed on a future agenda. Any action that is taken during a meeting that is found to be in violation of open meeting law is null and void. So you would have to redo any action from that meeting. Call to the public. Call to the public allows the public an opportunity to address the commission. It is not required, but the city of Kingman does allow for call to the public on our meeting agendas. And then we also set a reasonable time limit of 3 minutes per speaker. Once a speaker has had their opportunity to address the commission, they get their 3 minutes and then they're done. If for whatever reason later they're like, oh, I also wanted to say, they've already passed on they've had their 3 minute opportunity. So unless the commission asks specifically for an audience member to address a question that you may have, you do not have to allow for them to come back up. You've given them their time consideration.
If we wanted to let them speak longer, are we allowed to do that?
So we have set the time limit, and so if you let one person speak longer than 3 minutes, then you would have to let everybody speak longer than 3 minutes. So if your commission does not want to impose a time limit, then that would just be a discussion to have, and it would have to be across the board. It couldn't be individual specific. It would have to be just a standard across the board. And I can double check and see what our handbook says, if it's been set at just the 3 minutes or if there's been room built in for it to be extended if needed.
And then the next question would follow: if we allowed someone to speak for 5 minutes at one meeting, would that then change it for time and eternity in the future? Or would we only be required to let anyone speak for 5 minutes at that particular meeting?
So that I will have to look and see what our handbook says and then get back to you. What I will do is provide that information to staff, and I'll have them send it out to your commission so you guys have that information.
At the next meeting?
Mm-hmm. You'll have it before your next meeting, so that if you need to make any adjustments, we can't build it into the language of the agenda that is standard across the board language, but I will see if there is an opportunity, because we set the time on an actual timer. So if it's determined that your commission can extend that time, then we would be able to do so manually on the timer.
Okay.
And then you could just let whoever was addressing you know that you have up to 5 minutes to share whatever it is with the commission.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
If we have on our agenda, say, an invite for somebody to speak on a matter, that is not subject to the 3 minutes, is that correct?
That is correct. If you have a consultant or somebody you've invited to your meeting, not a public comment, so not somebody that's just sharing their thoughts and feelings on something, but somebody that is a part of an agenda item, an applicant, something like that, then we do not impose a time limit on them.
Thank you.
The other important thing with call to the public is that you cannot respond to call to the public. You can respond if there is a specific criticism. If somebody comes up here and they blast one of the commissioners and they are not kind, at the end of call to the public, you do have the opportunity to respond to that. Otherwise, you can ask staff to look into a matter further. You can sit in silence, you can say thank you and just have them sit back down. But again, it is not a time for back and forth communication with you. Even if they ask a question, if the last part of what they have to say is a question, you can't answer that. Even if you know the answer, you can't. That is not a time for communication. What you can do is just say, we will have staff follow up with you on that. The public does have the right to attend, listen to, tape record, and videotape our public meetings. Unless they have signed up during that designated time to speak, they do not have the right to speak or be disruptive. If any public officer knowingly violates open meeting law, there is a potential of a civil penalty that could be imposed. And it could also be imposed, like I said before, against anybody that was a part of that violation. And then potentially you could have court fees and be removed from your spot on the commission. And then again, any legal action taken in a meeting that there has been determined an open meeting law violation would be considered void. Conflict of interest, excuse me, we are a small community, so there are times with our commissions where our commissioners have to recuse themselves from the conversation because there is a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest is when you or an immediate family member have a direct interest, financial gain, anything like that from an item that is going to be discussed. Your recording secretary, Ms. Janie, has a form that you'll fill out, and then you just do not participate in the discussion or the vote on that item. If somebody having to recuse themselves from conversation reduces your amount of voting members and you no longer have a quorum, then that item gets bumped to your next agenda. So find out ahead of time of what your conflicts are. You guys get to see your agendas ahead of time, so you should be able to take a quick glance at it and see and make the determination. If you have any question on whether there may be, a potential conflict, we're always happy to have that conversation with you, or you can speak to our city attorney's office as well. And then any buddy that serves as an employee, as an elected official, or as a member of our boards and commissions, if you do have a business that is coming through the city, you do have to go through the formal bidding process, even if it doesn't hit that threshold to have to require it, because you serve in your role, it would automatically trigger that requirement. And then a remote interest, if your cousin's, uncle's, brother's neighbor, so you know the person has something on your agenda, but it doesn't benefit you personally or your immediate family in any way, then that's fine and you don't have to declare that. These are the statutes that we are held to as far as open meeting law and conflict of interest. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. You can also always, like I said, reach out to myself or to the city attorney if you have questions down the road after you've chewed on it a little bit. And now we're going to flip right over into parliamentary procedures. All right, so I want to just say really quick, because we get a lot of questions about the difference between Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary procedures. The city of Kingman does not follow a strict Robert's Rules of Order. It's very constrictive, and it really would make it difficult for us to do business and to operate our boards and commissions. What we do and what we'll cover in here is that we are able to tailor it to suit our organization, and parliamentary procedures are a portion of Robert's Rules of Orders that we follow. So what is parliamentary procedures? Oops. Let me just get rid of this really quick so it's not in the way. There we go. It's a set of rules for conduct at meetings. It allows everybody to be heard and make decisions without confusion. It's important because it's a time-tested method of conducting business at meetings and public gatherings. And like I said before, it can be adapted to fit the needs of any organization. And it's just important that everybody knows the basic rules. This is the typical meeting order. This is the way that our meeting agendas are laid out. So I'm not going to go through all that, but that is set by the parliamentary procedures. We're going to talk about motions, how a motion is handled, and Mr. Amspoker did beautifully earlier with that motion. So that is definitely what you want to see with your future motions. It's the proposal that allows the entire membership to take action on an item. It's how you guys are able to express yourselves, your support of something, or your not support of something. The main motions that you guys use will be called what we call the main motion. The purpose of that motion is to introduce an item to your membership for consideration. It cannot be made when any other motion is on the floor, and they yield to privileged, subsidiary, and incidental motions. A subsidiary motion is, the purpose is to change or affect how a main motion is handled, and then it's voted on before a main motion. And then there's incidental motions, and their purpose is to provide a means of questioning procedure concerning other motions and must be considered before the other motion. The life of a motion, you guys saw that with the approval of your minutes. Somebody makes a motion, somebody seconds the motion, there's an opportunity for discussion, and then you guys take a vote. When you are wanting to obtain the floor, you address the chairperson by, saying, Chair Amspoker, and then they'll acknowledge you, you make your motion. It's important that you speak in a clear and concise manner. The motion is the action of the agenda item, so we want to be sure that we record that properly. And then you wait for somebody to second your motion. It can be automatic, like, do I have a motion? I motion, I second. Or if nobody immediately seconds, the chairperson can call for a second. If you do not receive a second to your motion, then that motion does die or is lost. The chairperson is going to restate your motion, so he will say, we have a motion to approve the minutes, and a second. Are there any other comments or discussion? And then they'll call for the vote. There is an opportunity to expand your motion if it's an item that's a little bit more complicated than just approving your minutes. If there needs to be more specific detail, maybe there was a staff recommendation in a request that you want to make sure you include in that motion, like we make a motion to approve and including the staff recommendations as outlined. And then you put the question to the membership. There are different ways you can vote on a motion. Generally, we just vote by voice. The chairperson will say, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries, or motion fails. If it is close and it's really hard to determine if you have a vote, then you can ask the recording secretary to do a roll call vote, and we just go down our roster and you'll say yay or nay, and then she'll let you know if the motion is approved or not. And then by division is just if you wanted to do it by raising hands. But for the purpose of the Zoom participants, it would be best to use a voice motion or a roll call. There are two other motions that you sometimes will see, mostly in a council meeting. There will be a motion to table. If you need additional information or you want to have some time to do a little bit more research on an item before you take a vote, you do have the opportunity to motion to table it to the next meeting or, in 2 meetings, depending on how much time you need. That allows it to be brought back for reconsideration as an old business item. There's a motion to postpone indefinitely. This one is generally, if you're postponing indefinitely, it means it's something that will most likely not come back to you for review. So parliamentary procedure is the best way to get things done at your meeting. It works if you use it properly. It allows motions that are in order. It has the members obtain the floor properly, be sure you speak clearly and concisely, and then obey the rules of debate and really just be courteous. There are times that agenda items can come forward in our council or commission meetings that not everybody agrees on. So we just want to make sure that everybody just shows proper respect to each other. And that is all I have. This is the link should you want to look into that further. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Commissioner Amspoker, I have a question.
Sure.
Pretty sure I'm the only member of the commission that has a business at the airport. And two of the big topics are always Taxiway Bravo and the draw site, which is right in front of my hangar. So I'm just wondering if I have already violated conflict of interest and should recuse myself from those discussions of Taxiway Bravo and the draw site when they come up.
So unless you are directly benefiting financially, and I know that one's got to have a gray area, right? Because obviously
Right.
if there's better access to your business,
Right.
then that could be seen as a benefit.
Right.
But I think if staff was concerned that there would have been potentially a conflict of interest, they probably would have reached out to you or asked the city attorney if he thought so. Both of those projects, I believe, are being done by the city as our projects and a benefit to the city.
I gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Andy, may I please just say something?
Yeah.
Like with Taxiway Bravo and the draws, it benefits everybody, all airport users. So trying to narrow it down for you it's a little bit difficult when Ms. Chairman Amspoker and Commissioner Gerlach could all use and take advantage of it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good question, though. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions? I will let you guys get back to your business, and I will see you next year.
Thank you so much. Okay. We have some people here. We don't normally have people here at our meetings. And we did move Annie up to do the Annie Meredith up to give us our training. I'm going to ask you gentlemen if you're here to speak about anything on the agenda.
I'm here to speak possibly, I don't know about the agenda, but speak about 4800 Flightline Drive and our interest in that property and possibly relocating our flights.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead with our agenda, and I think we can probably,
Chair Am Spoker, because they missed the public comment section. I believe they cannot bring that forth, but I will state this in my reports. I am going to talk about 4800 Flightline Drive.
so you're going to talk about it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and if you talk about it, does that, well, okay. Go ahead with your report. Please.
We still have to do the old business,
Yeah,
the airport capital improvements fiscal year
yeah,
2029.
please go ahead with the old business, and then we'll do the new business. Normally, reports come before any of that, but I noticed on this agenda, you put the reports at the end.
In the last one, we actually have the new and the old business being in front of the reports. The reports come at the end.
Okay. The format's changed.
Janie, can you speak up into the mic?
Mr. Chair, I'm just explaining the formatting of the agenda throughout the whole city system has changed. That's why you're noticing the old business.
So I'm not incorrect that it used to be done
You're not losing.
differently?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Old business, the capital improvements.
Yes, sir. What this is over the past few meetings, I know I've been giving you guys examples of our current capital improvement projects for the next 5 years. And this is the next step of obtaining the recommendation of the Airport Industrial Park Advisory Commission on future projects that are in the airport master plan. What this is that the airport capital improvements program or plan is a list of projects that the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, ADOT, and the sponsor of the airport, which is the city, forecast out that which helps them determine what plans or what projects are coming up and how to budget and what the priorities are on these projects for future, how can I say, financial, are applying or making the funds available for future projects. So in this case, right now, what we have is, or what we're beginning to do, or what we're about to start doing, is plan out for the ACIP, or Airport Capital Improvements Project meeting program, with FAA, ADOT, and the airport sponsor coming up in June, July. Now, with that, we have provided a list of projects that we're seeking the Commission's recommendation on, kind of prioritizing, and based upon those recommendations, when we go in and we speak to the FAA and ADOT, and along with our engineers, we'll see if we can put those plans and establish them for 2029. Now, a couple of projects, such as, forgive me, I know I left it up here. A couple of these projects, such as the taxiway alpha and also the creation of a blast pad due to the fact that we have those scheduled for design in 2028. We're going to have to schedule those for 2029. But we have a possibility of having additional projects that come up or can be planned for 2029. And those projects are on that sheet of a list of about 4 projects. All 4 of these projects can be funded with both federal, state, and along with our local shares. One of these projects is to relocate the segmented circle, primary wind code, and rotating beacon. This will allow additional storage of aircraft, and then moreover includes the creation of the runway identification lights to be installed at the ends of runway 1735. Another project that we have in our master plan, actually it should have been pushed at the bottom, or next one is the runway end identification lights, is the reels to provide positive identification to the runways. That's the second plan or second project that will be that is an option for the commission.
Can you explain, because we have a number of people on the commission that are not possibly familiar with some of the abbreviations, and so if you could explain what the reels are.
Yes, Chair. Actually, let me go into this and go a little bit back. The segmented circle, which is the primary windsock, that is the primary visual identification for pilots when they're landing or taking off of the runway to identify where the wind is blowing and give them an estimate of how hard the wind is blowing. The wind cone is that actual item that determines the wind that sits in the middle of the segmented circle, and then next to it is the rotating beacon. The rotating beacon is what pilots identify from a distance that we are a civilian use airport, and allows them to visually see it either in low visibility or at night. You could see these beacons from a substantial amount of distance out, several miles. The runway ends identification lights, or reels, for runway 1735, they're a set of lights that are on each side of the edge of the runway, preferably on the approach, one facing out, or they face out on the approach ends of these runways. They flash a steady white flash that helps pilots identify, say, hey, that's the edge of the runway, I'm lined up on it, or I'm not lined up. It helps them better identify the end of the runway when coming in for a landing. The third project is design and relocation of taxiway C to a runway to the runway centerline separation of 240 feet. Now, this one is going to be a fairly large project. What the master plan has determined is that taxiway Charlie is substantial distance away from the runway, lining up parallel to the runway, when we could actually move it a little bit closer. By moving it a little bit closer will put us in a position in the future to further develop a northern ramp section along the airport where BLM is, where we have that Mojave County dump site, and that could possibly lead to future development and to, future parking, future businesses to come in. But please keep in mind that is going to be a very cost-intensive project. And then the other project is the no taxi islands. This has been something that the FAA has been pushing out for the past 5 to 10 years. They're not a big fan of aircraft able to go right down a taxiway at relative high speed and immediately enter the ramp. What they're trying to do is get pilots to stop, make some type of right-hand turn, slow down before they enter a ramp. So what ends up happening is in the master plan, we actually looked at near Delta 4, Delta 3, those taxiways of installing nothing that's an actual island, but more of green paint that goes on the ground, along with the taxiway edge marking that tells pilots, please stop, slow down, make a right-hand turn before you actually enter the taxiway. So it's more of a safety. So with this, what we're looking at is commission's priorities on four projects, kind of priority ranking them 1, 2, 4. And what we will do is take that priority list and we will use it when it comes to our ASIP planning with the FAA and ADOT.
You skipped 3.
Oh, sorry. 3?
You said 1, 2, and 4.
2, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Apologize. So example, if you determine that taxiway islands, no taxiway islands is the highest priority, then we'll go ahead and we'll make that as high priority. If you determine that the runway in identification lights is the next highest priority, then we'll make that the next highest priority on the list. And then your third recommendation will be the relocation of the segmented circle, primary wind code, and rotating beacon. Then we'll make that the third priority and so forth. And then taxiway Charlie would be the fourth. So when we go in there and we speak to ADOT and the FAA, we'll say, hey, this is our first priority. They'll say, yes, we can fund it. Then we'll say, hey, here's our second priority or recommendation, taking your recommendations. If they said, yes, they could fund that, we will program that in for 2029. If we go to the third and they say, no, we're not going to be able to afford that at this time, please push that back, then we'll go ahead and we'll put a note on it for possibly 2030. If you guys need some time to review this, I will be completely understanding. I know it's a lot of information and trying to make a priority list.
Does anybody have any questions about this?
My thing is like, I would look at what's safety first, like what the most pressing safety concern would be, and then what the quality of life would be after that for the users.
Anybody else have any comments? I personally think the reels for runway 1735 are more safety related. For anybody that's landing at night, you kind of need to see where the runway starts, and the reels will help that. I still don't quite understand when we've got a perfectly good taxiway, Charlie, why we want to make it closer to the runway, and especially when we need to make our primary runway, the taxiway is far enough away, but we've got to move the windsock because it's too close to the runway.
Well, Jerry, I'm spoken for this one. This is the actual primary windsock. This is not too close from the runway. This was what I believe was put in the airport master plan, anticipating a lot more additional aircraft storage. So in order to capitalize on that section of the airfield for additional aircraft storage, they're looking at moving the windsock, wind cone, segmented circle, and the beacon further on the opposite end or northern end of taxiway Alpha to allow for additional aircraft storage.
I have a question. Do you know which one of these is potential for the best return on investment? Like, if you were to get a grant or have this paid for, which one would be best from a financial standpoint?
Well, on return on investment, the only one that could even possibly really lead to it would be the relocation of the segmented circle and primary windsock. Because we could use those areas as for future aircraft storage and parking. After that, maybe the taxiway Charlie redesign, but ADOT is about to spend additional cash here with the taxiway Charlie 608 application Fox Hills, so they may not be so inclined to fund that or push that at this time. Plus, with the larger taxiway Alpha project and the creation of the blast pad being scheduled for that year, they may be a little bit more hesitant in funding a complete movement of a taxiway. or complete relocation.
Can you tell us approximately what the cost of all these 4 different proposals would be?
For an approximate, the taxiway islands probably around $150,000 to $200,000. Now, keep in mind, this is in the airport master plan, and a lot of these prices that were created back in 2019 and approved in 2021 are already out of date. Way out of date. The design for taxiway Charlie is probably going to be around $400,000 if I had to make an estimate. The runway and identification lights are probably going to be around $600,000, $700,000. And the primary circles relocation is probably going to be, if I have to make an estimate, around $750,000, maybe more.
So by far the cheapest one would be the islands?
Will be the islands.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I was thinking the taxi islands, then the reels, the relocated segment circle, primary wind cone, rotating beacon, and then the design of taxiway C in that order.
Is that a motion?
I'd like to submit a motion to put them in that order.
Is there discussion?
I'll discuss, we can discuss it later after the second
Yeah,
motion. if there's
is there
one.
a second?
I'll second that
Now-
motion.
Oh, sorry. It's already been seconded,
Okay,
sorry.
we've got a motion and a second. We'll have discussion.
I was going to ask Commissioner Gerlach if he, I mean, we're both pilots, and I, as far as the piloting part of it goes, other than having the lights on the other runway, that would be nice at night, which I personally don't fly at night very often, but I don't see any other, or see any reason to have any of these in whatever order, and I'm okay with what was suggested already. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah,
So-
no, I agree with that.
Is there other discussion? Any questions? We've got 3 members here that are not pilots. Tom, Jim, commissioners?
You know, I'm listening and taking it in, especially since there's 3 pilots here. I think that
Well,
the allocations of
there's
funds,
technically 4 with John Stutzman.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn from you all on this.
And you have learned much so far, because I haven't really said one of these I'd rather have over the other.
I would like to point out, I'm not a pilot either, but I do take into account what everybody's feelings have been as far as flying, which is why for me, safety and then quality of life for everyone involved is like 2 of the most important things for me.
So safety would be, first thing would be the reels, right? Would you agree with that? No?
I think you
Yeah.
said the island first.
the
It's,
island?
yeah, it's kind of a mixture of the island and the reels with the taxiway Delta project design kicking off. It would probably be best to install the islands as soon as possible. That's probably a good idea. And then reels will probably be the next one in line. Those are your 2 high safety.
Yeah, I think the island project, I've actually seen aircraft take off from the ramp. Just go. And I've witnessed that myself, so I think that might be some assistance from preventing that in the future.
Well, it is an uncontrolled airport, so.
So maybe with an amendment there, to have the no taxi islands and the reels, and then, again, the design in last, and then the moving of the segmented circle third. Now that you're forcing us to have a discussion.
Yeah,
Sorry.
That's okay, I'm glad you are.
well, that's kind of the point here.
Yes. Tim, what do you
Now,
think?
just throwing it out there, if you guys need some more time to take in this information, make a determination, you do have more time. Because we will have time to discuss this if need be in our next meeting. And next meeting, that's when you can come up establish and provide your recommendations, and then I'll immediately take your recommendations, send that off to the engineers for our June meeting, right before we meet with ADOT and the FAA in July.
We've got a motion on the floor, though.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we can table it with a motion on the floor.
We can just not second it and then have it die.
It's
been
already
It's already been seconded.
It's been second.
Oh,
The recommendation was to
We can just
put
not
it in the
vote for it.
order. But
Was,
then we would have to submit another motion
Yeah.
to put it forward for
We
consideration.
could vote it down and then table it,
Okay.
is the way I see it. No, any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Janie, could you read the motion back to us as it stands?
No, sir, I cannot read it back. I don't have. But his recommendation was to put this listed priority for taxiways 1, runways, rails on 2, the relocation circle, circle has 3, and the design relocated taxiway sequence 4.
Okay, that,
If you want to stop discussion, not go further, send the
he can. Right. Okay. Is that something you want to do, or do you want to have a motion? We can vote on it.
I thought that was part of the discussion, so if you guys want to continue discussing it later, I'll rescind it.
My question would be, would these be in a separate order priority?
Possibly. I don't know. That's what we're kind of discussing.
I think at this point, I think now that we've turned a little more about it, I'd like to go out there and drive around maybe with you and look at some of these things and then make a vote on it at a later date. That's what I would like to do.
We're going to have a vote. We're going to vote on this, and if you want to table it, then we're going to have to vote it down. All in favor of the motion as it stands, signify by saying aye. All opposed, signify by saying nay.
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 I think the motion failed.
and you would,
Is there a motion to table this until the next meeting?
Yes, I'll make the motion to table this item until next meeting.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of tabling this until the next meeting, which will probably be, I'm guessing, June,
I believe it may be May.
May? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Okay, we've already done the reports.
We completed new business. We now have the reports, the industrial park staff report.
That's what I was going to say.
And Mr. Bennett was unable to be here. He's down in Phoenix. So I'm going to do the best as I can to take his place on this. If you have any difficult questions, I am going to pawn it off to him and let him answer the questions to the best of his ability at a later date. Really two things for the industrial park. One is our carloads for the rail system. Back in January, we had 130 carloads inside of the industrial park. As for land sales, we have received approval from the FAA to sell 7.741 acres just across from where Shells West is, Winrose, and Alpha Zulu Composites for an appraised value for $300,000. We're now moving towards the next step for making this land sale. Request for proposals has to be placed out, and then approval by council, and then the sale will be official. Right now, the prospective client or clients or purchasers are requesting to remain anonymous at this time.
How much was that figure again, please?
300,000.
Do you have other things on the industrial park?
And the other thing that's on the industrial park is we recently did an economic impact study for the industrial park. I'm just going to go over just a few highlights of that. This full report is published at choosekingman.com. You can go on there and obtain a good bit of this information. Just give you a little bit of snippets or little pieces of it, good points of it. With the Kingman Municipal Airport and Industrial Park, created a total economic impact of $750.9 million in Kingman and Mojave County for the fiscal year 2022. This includes results from business administration, on airport businesses, and short line rail and business inside the industrial park. The 73 businesses inside the industrial park had a direct economic impact of $550.2 million per year, effectively the combined local production value of these companies. These companies also employ 2,673 employees that work within the industrial park and make up almost a quarter of the city's employment base. The industrial park also supports an additional $180 million in economic impacts and approximately 1,070 jobs at other companies in the county throughout their local spending. So this is more indirect economic impact. The results of total annual economic impact is $730.2 million from the industrial park. So the industrial park supporting everything is about $730.2 million annually. As for the airport has a more of a direct economic impact of $2.7 million on airport businesses, make local purchases, creating an indirect economic impact of $1.8 million per year, contributing to the total economic impact. This excludes the roughly $7 million that are on-site businesses and the city that spends locally to support the operations of the airport. Employees at the airport also make local consumer purchases, generating an additional $3.5 million in annual induced impacts in Mojave County. These employee purchases also contribute a total economic impact estimated at $17.8 million per year if we include the city government spending, and real impact is closer to $30 million. So this study is actually found at Choose Kingman, but it gives you an idea of the value of the industrial park and the airport has on the city and also the county, and what our businesses inside the park contribute to our economy.
In the packet that we received, it was pretty extensive, this document that the Economic Development Department put out. It was very informative, and if you can pass along to the Economic Department, I was impressed with their proposals. They also identified the besides the benefits financially to the community, they identified some areas that are affecting future growth. Most of the businesses projected that they'd be growing, but they also identified things that could improve the likelihood of the growth. And I gotta say, none of that seemed to be within the possibility of being improved by our commission. You were talking about transportation and condition of roads and things like that. So, I thought they did a real good job.
Well, this next one, I'll definitely let Chair Answick, definitely let Bennett and his team know. The next report that he was going to give a brief summary on is the Industrial Park and Airport Business Retention Expansion Report. I'm kind of just going to hit up just a few of these slides. It's pretty extensive. This report is also found at choosekingman.com. This was right here. The basic objectives that Bennett and his team were going after was to really reach out to the community or the businesses inside the industrial park in the city and demonstrate the city's pro-business attitude. They also wanted to build on developing communications with local businesses, obtain their opinion and satisfaction level with the city, identify business needs and concerns that may be addressed by the city, identify their future outlook, identify opportunity to provide training, and develop strategies and actions that will continue to support the economic development. They went out there and they spoke to multiple businesses located inside the industrial park, airport industrial park, gave them a list of questions, and from there they developed this retention to figure out what they are enjoying. Well, first off, about their businesses. Second off is what can be used to improve their businesses, what obstacles they have that need to be overcome, and we take that information to identify and see what we can do to provide assistance or guidance in those areas. So a little bit of background. These are a list of the companies that are located inside the industrial park and what their primary focuses are. I'm not going to read this for everybody. I'm pretty sure that you can. Family owned businesses, private and public businesses. As you know, there's 19 private businesses are inside the industrial park and 5 are public. We also have a pretty wide range of years of businesses established, 30 plus years all the way to 1 to 5 years. I will have to give our economic development department a lot of credit because in the past 5 years they've been really pushing to sell lands and improve businesses and assist them with expanding. This kind of gives a list of what these companies focus on. One thing is that they mostly focus regional and also national, so that means they kind of bring money back into our community through their goods and services that they sell. For each business, this kind of gives you a little bit of idea of the total amount of employees that they have on staff. We do have a few that are over 100 and over. And then also, they're kind of what they're focusing on distribution, division, manufacturing, and R&D. And then you're also looking at office operations for their actual facilities. And this is one of the more important ones, is their actual need or want to expand. Expansion activity could consist of the following: expansion of existing facilities, renovation of existing facilities, and new expenditures. So they have received a lot of individuals that are requesting to expand, which is going to be very crucial when it comes to the industrial park land release that's going to expand those additional 700 acres. It will give our current businesses and also bring in new businesses to our area and also really allow our current businesses to expand. This also is a little information they also gathered, such as new products, services, and capabilities over the next 2 years. So 79% of the businesses came back and said yes, they want to create either new products, services, or increase their capabilities within the next 2 years. So our businesses are growing, seeing a positive increase, and we are identifying that. Top 5 industries served. We have approximately 2 aviation companies that are inside the industrial park, heavy construction, 4 utilities, we have 2, residential and multifamily housing, we have 6 businesses that focus on that, and then we have 2 on mining. For company sales, we have 5 that are showing that they're stable, and we have over 15 that are showing it's greatly increasing, with just 1 where it shows it's decreasing. So that shows you how good our businesses are inside the industrial park and what we need to do, or that we need to support them. The market share, stable. A lot of them are also seeing that their market share is increasing, and then they're also seeing some decreasing. And then workforce evaluation. It's a little bit of information where we're asking them questions. Community, such as, is the community attractive for hiring outside region? 53% said no, 47% said yes. That is one area that the economic development goes into a little bit further detail in their report. But one good thing is that they did ask, it says, what is the community strengths? They did come back with the community strengths that allow us to further go out there and know, okay, we're doing good here, we need to keep pushing it, keep improving it, and then also figure out where we're lacking to kind of correct or mitigate against our weaknesses and turn those into strengths. So the barriers of growth, this list of barrier growths that they found out through the actual study and the questionnaires. And the recommendations of finding. Public transportation to the industrial park has been identified. Improvements to marketability of current industrial park land. Complete phase 2 of the industrial park land release. And then workforce housing options and needs. Forgive me, I'm just going to go ahead and just go down to the 2 phases. Main ones, complete phase 2 in the industrial park that has been identified. We originally were looking at 1,800 acres, but we're going to have to narrow it down to 700 acres. We have been receiving a lot of requests for expanding their businesses into other sections inside the park. We also have inquiries of other businesses that want to come in. So the land release is not only going to bring in new businesses, but also help our current businesses expand. Housing options, workforce housing options. The county is actually doing a little bit of research into this. They're hopefully going to provide a summary or complete their study in June of this year. June or July of this year is the anticipation. This is a little bit of information stating that the people are moving in from the outside areas and start moving more into more rural areas or getting out of the metropolitan areas, especially businesses. Apologize for making that a little bit expedited, oversimplified. But when Bennett comes back, I could definitely have him, if you wish to, go into a little bit more detail.
Any questions concerning the industrial park and the economic impact it's having? Okay, let's move on to the airport staff report.
Okay, for airport activities in the staff report. Airport business development. RFP IGM 2101 parcel development just north of Arizona. That piece of land, we have been in conversations with Jet Yard, and finally we have an agreement that's almost 100% finalized. We're just waiting to hear back what type of building size that are going to go into that land. One section of the actual agreement states in there they will be held to a specific hangar size, a specific office size, so they're trying to get that last bit of finalized through their engineers. Once we have that, we're going to plug it in and have this signed and start moving forward with the development of that property. 4800 Flightline Drive. We put out an RFP for potential businesses or private individuals that wish to lease that property. That's around 2.16 acres with a 3,500 square foot hangar in there. We've had 4 companies that were interested. And when we released the RFP, we left it open a little bit longer, more than a month, about a month and a half, just to give them some time to read over the RFP and actually create their own proposals. Nobody submitted. So once nobody submitted for the actual property, we were wondering why. We went out there, we started asking individuals questions. Why did they not submit? What was the obstacle? Did they have changes in their business plans? Some of them actually did respond. One of the responses that did come back was regards to the actual proposal. They said it seemed a little bit complicated for them and what they want to do. It was a lot of information that they had to digest and figure out how to respond back. So what we are end up doing is taking those comments, and especially for these smaller parcel sizes, we are creating an actual application. And that application is just going to be a fill in the boxes. Do you want to use it for private? Do you want to use it for commercial? What new type of business are you going to bring in? What is your focus? Are you going to conduct any additional improvements to the property? And just really streamline it, make it a little bit easier for those smaller businesses where you have 3, 4, 5, 6 individuals that are kind of doing it all. They could just grab that one application, fill it out, and at the bottom put in their annual bid amount. So we are working on that application. We're going to have to make some little corrections here and there as we send it through our city attorney's office and financial department offices to make sure that it goes out correctly and we're not going to be violating any laws or rules.
Excuse me, could you give a better explanation or description of this 4800 Flightline Drive?
Sure, it's around 2.16 acres with just a 3,500 square foot building on the property. Hangar doors around 14 feet tall, with around 44 feet wide. A lot of the property is not developed. You just have the hangar that takes up about a quarter of the property. And what we have identified is some issues with the hangar. One issue that we have identified is flooding that is occurring where water is rushing off the ramp going inside the hangar, along with some issues with the electricity inside the hangar is not meeting current electrical codes. So one thing that we're looking at for the RFP is having whoever provides a proposal and is awarded by city council or is approved by city council. Then when they actually go through repairing or making adjustments to the drainage so it doesn't run inside the hangar, and also correcting the electrical issues along with getting a code of occupancy, then we'll take all that money or how much they spend, reviewed it, and we'll actually credit that or deduct it from their annual lease until they make that amount back up or regenerate or recover their cost. At this time, or during the appraisal process for the hangar and the property, was going for about $28,700 annually. So what we'll just do is take how much they ever spent for the actual creation or the repairs, and we'll just deduct that from their monthly bills or negotiate a monthly bill reduction till they recover their cost.
Okay, so this is the hangar where the C-123 was parked?
Yes, sir.
Up until fairly recently, and then the yard behind that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So there is plenty of room out there for individuals that wish to expand their businesses and do further development on the 2.16 acres. And I'd like to say the added benefit is that the hangar does have full-blown bath. There is a bathtub, shower, and everything in there in case if, please don't turn it into a living area. We're going to be in violation of other federal rules. As for projects coming up, Taxiway Bravo designs 100%. One issue that we actually came across with that project was that we will not have enough funding to complete all of Bravo. So with speaking with our engineers over the past several months, they have been reviewing the plans, and we had a discussion. Bravo was originally designed to handle much larger aircraft than what our airport is currently really kind of capable of handling. When this was determined, it was in hoping that we'll receive a massive increase in MD-87s, MD-88s, the old Mad Dog commercial aircraft coming in and using our airport as a storage area. Turns out they're not coming. So with that information, we're able to speak to the engineers, and they're like, well, if they're not coming out there, then what we can do is reduce the weight load of that taxiway from being over 100,000 pounds to around 100,000 pounds, and we should be able to cover it all. So that was really great. Looks like we'll be able to cover all the taxiway. Now, on the other hand, is that we're going to have to conduct this work after the draws, which I'm going to go into a little bit of information. We do have some great news on that.
I have a question, Manager.
Yes, sir.
So you said it's going to be designed so that it can up to 100,000 pounds, so you said. Could you give an idea of a class or category or type of aircraft that would be?
737, that is
down.
at its minimum operation weight.
Okay, so that and lower, 737s and down.
737 and down,
Okay.
A319, lower operating weight. I found it pretty shocking that an MD-87 actually weighs more than a 737. Even the new 737 Maxes, if you go to the minimum operations weight, then they could use that taxiway also.
Okay, thank you.
Draw site, all I could really say is, please pay attention to city council meeting tomorrow. It is underneath old business. It is going to be very positive. It looks like we're gonna have some movement. If everything goes well, we're gonna start kicking off the logistics side of that project as soon as possible to start moving forward with the construction side. Now, we do not want the Taxiway Bravo project and the taxiway and the Dross project working side by side. If we have one contractor or a thought by either the FAA or DOJ that the money's being used for another project, it could cause some issues. So we're gonna just push Bravo back until after the Dross project, because the Dross project, we really need to start kicking this off in before the monsoon season hits. So the actual Dross, aluminum Dross, we reduce the chance of it reactivating, or even reduce the chances of it recontaminating the soil through water runoff.
Do you have a start date for the draws? If this gets approved through the city council?
When it gets approved through the city council, we're gonna have to sign that last phase of the construction project, of the construction side of the agreement. It's gonna start this spring. It's
Okay,
going to
and
start
how
this
long do you
spring.
think it'll take?
It's gonna take about 7 months, 6 to
So
7 months.
there's no way it's not going to take place during monsoon season?
Well, when monsoon season kicks, they'll remove a good portion of that aluminum dross that's in the ground, and they're gonna end up putting in these large bags. So you're looking at towards when monsoon season kicks off, hopefully that will be the backfilling a lot of the sections and installing the remaining of the asphalt.
That is very good news, and I'll be there tomorrow at the meeting for sure,
Yeah.
the council
Oh,
meeting.
I am.
That's good.
Landscapes and terminal landscapes and renovation, as you have probably heard in the last city council meeting or a couple of council meetings ago, city council approved the renovation of the terminal building. If you're not aware, we've had some air conditioning issues inside the terminal building where the women's restroom during the wintertime was freezing up. Lack of heating and air was occurring inside the restrooms. So we're gonna get the HVAC system fixed. We're gonna repair or replace our toilets and our sinks, which are badly outdated. They're actually worn and tarnished, so it looks a lot more presentable for our business and our general aviation that comes and utilizes the terminal building. And then one upside is replacing the glass or the windows with double painted or much more environmentally friendly, so it reduces our electric bill inside of the terminal building. For the actual runway 1735 and taxiway Charlie P608, that's a Fox seal that increases the lifespan of our taxiways. We received some information back from ADOT. They are planning to start in the beginning of May. We're going to be going through about late April, spraying weeds inside the cracks along the runways and taxiways and prep it for the actual sealant project. This project's probably going to last just a few weeks, just about three weeks, with maybe just 1 or 2 nights of having both runways closed. We're trying to prevent both runways from being closed in the middle of the daytime at night when the airfield's not going to be used as much. After a certain amount of time, the 608 application is how could I say, perforating into the pores of the asphalt. We are going to have some temporary runway and taxiway markings down, but we will have to go back later and install, or ADOT will install through their contractor, brand new markings, airfield markings in those locations. Same thing with the master drainage study. The airfield master drainage study is kind of slowed down in anticipation with the Rancho Santa Fe Parkway and the Industrial Park Master Development Plan. That work that is outside the fence line, any type of drainage that's going to be corrected out there is going to impact the interior of the airfield. So CNS is the company that's heading up that study. They're also heading up the engineering side of the Industrial Park Master Development Plan. So they have both their hands in both sides of those projects. So they're linking those two and making sure whatever we do on the outside of the fence, what it's going to have an impact on the inside of the fence. So that's came to a slowdown, but they are working with both projects and having that move forward. Apron project, last month we crack sealed, which we increased it to about almost an additional 30,000 pounds of mastic seal and cracks located on the ramp. With this time, we managed to complete it in roughly 1 week. Unlike last year where we just had one pot that was cooking, it took us about a week and a half to almost 2 weeks, because when you fill the material inside the pot, it took roughly around an hour and a half for it to be in a position to apply it. And then we went out there, applied it, took about 30 minutes, and then we're waiting another hour and a half to refill the cauldrons with new mastic seal. So this time we purchased 2 of these cauldrons, and we ran them while one was cooking, the other one was using to apply to these large cracks. As soon as that was done, we just swapped them out. So the staff really got a lot more done in a short amount of time, and it was very positive. We greatly reduced the amount of large cracks we have out there to possibly just one more time for next year of reapplying to finish off the remainder of the cracks that are over 1.5 to 2 inches wide. Gate code changes. We have received the signs explaining the new gate codes. We're looking at this month of installing those signs. They're going to be on the inside of the fence, not facing the exterior of the fence. We will be making those adjustments for a new code. We will be putting that out via email once that code goes into place, and also out with the bills for next billing cycle. And what we're just going to request is people, please don't share this code. Please don't share it. Please do not put it on Facebook. The last thing we want is all these changes to occur, and we're immediately back in the same position where we're at.
I have a question. Of course, FedEx and UPS and whatnot come on the property a lot to make deliveries, and so how does the word get out to them?
We're going to have to reach out to them. We're going to have to reach out to them directly. UPS and both FedEx actually lease from the airport.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
When do you plan on implementing this?
We're planning to implement this month. We're going to keep the old code in there just for a short amount of time, maybe for about a month, just till people get used to the new code, and then we're going to remove it.
Is the new code still going to be the same one that we've discussed in the past?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Please forgive me, I do not want to give the new code out on public.
That's why I stated it the way I did.
Also, we purchased a used oil collection drum. This is going to be installed next to the T-hangars. This is going to be for our general aviation tenants, either in the uncovered parking, tied down, and within the A, B, C, and D rows of the hangars. So if they need a place to remove their oil, it will now be right next to the hangars instead of them having to call up to the airport. So it will be there on site. This is not going to be used for commercial use. It's just going to be used for our general aviation and private pilots.
On,
We're,
on the oil dump site, you had talked about putting it over by the garbage, the trash can. But that hangar there, if you're gonna bolt it to anything, that hangar is privately owned. Have you considered possibly putting it over at the end of the D row, which would be in the same general area, but the city owns those hangars, and they could, you
Actually-
could bolt it to the frame of the D row.
that is a good recommendation. We will definitely take a look at that.
At least look at it. Thank you.
We'll definitely take a look at it because we will be able to bolt it to the physical building right there. Taxiway Delta Rehab and Design, we held a kickoff meeting a couple of months ago for the rehab and design of Taxiway Delta. We're currently in the design phase of that. Now what that project is going to be rehabbing a lot of Taxiway Delta's current asphalt and then doing the geometry of the connectors for Taxiway Delta. Some of those connectors do not meet new federal guidelines. So we will be shifting some of the taxiways north and south a little bit to meet new federal guidelines. We're hoping or anticipating beginning construction next federal fiscal year.
Do we have money for that from the feds?
Yes, sir, we do have the grant. The feds are picking up 91% of this project.
Thank you.
Kind of going into this, ADOT, council did approve the ADOT share of the 4.91% of this project. It is in ADOT's hands for their final signature. Once they finally sign it, then they're going to be picking up their share, which is a little less than $20,000. Giving you guys an idea of also two projects that were brought up by several of our tenants. One is some of our tenants have been requesting repair to the EAA and T-hanger vehicle gates, mainly the pavement. We are going to put this or request this in the budget for fiscal year 2024 to repair both those driveways going into those gates. EAA pedestrian gate. EAA has requested a pedestrian gate a couple of months ago. Myself and the staff went over there and spoke to EAA, took a look at their location, where they want to install the gate, and we are going to put this in for 2024 also. And you know what? There is one thing I did not brief on, but this is going to be a PowerPoint presentation on the navigational easement update.
Chairman,
Yes.
can I make a quick introduction of who he is?
Sure.
This is Councilman Savage, and he's our representative from the city council.
Yeah.
And he's a big advocate of growth. And I'm very pleased personally to have him on this commission.
Yes,
Sorry for missing you early.
I think most everybody here knew who he was.
Right.
And I agree, we're glad you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, I got 3 more meetings. Have fun.
Okay,
Take care.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Pleasure meeting you all.
Now, staff has been reviewing and going over documentation, for the navigation easement, and just to help out with a little bit of understanding. I wish I knew how to hide this. I should have been watching Annie. Just give somebody a little bit of idea about the sounds, okay? These are everyday sounds that people hear on their relative decibel levels. This came from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. A soft whisper is around 30 decibels. Refrigerator hum is around 40. A normal conversation is around 60 decibels. Dishwashing machine or washing machine dishwasher is around 70. City traffic while you're sitting inside your car, the exterior traffic, if you're driving through LA mainly, is going to be around 80 to 85 decibels. Motorcycles are going to be around 95 decibels. And if you're standing right next to a police siren, it's going to be 150 decibels. Now that kind of just gives you an idea of when we start going into the decibels or dBs for the noise evaluation, people will have a little bit better understanding. This is what actually came from our airport master plan back in 2021. There's an entire section that's in there regarding our noise contours. The FAA land use compatibility guidelines are established under 14 CFR Part 150. According to the Part 150, residential land use and schools are noise-sensitive areas that are considered compatible with a 65 decibel day and night sound average. So in other words, 65 decibels is the limit. If you start going over it for your average day and night lifetime in that area, then you have to start looking at what you can do to resolve a problem with a school, make some minor adjustments to air traffic, possibly even installing noise dampening material inside houses. And usually when you install those noise dampening materials, it lowers the dBe down inside by 25 decibels. Now, Exhibit 5B and 5C of the airport master plan, they will be on the next slide. They depict the existing and anticipating noise contours for the Kingman Municipal Airport. Exhibit 5B, which is our existing conditions, we have 65 day and night average inside the fence line. It never leaves the airport fence line. Even with Exhibit 5C, which is the estimated noise contour for 2039 with anticipated changes in fleet mixes, the 65 decibels never leaves airport property. And very little of it leaves the actual fence line of the airport, even with the extension of our primary runway. It is important to note that the operational growth, unless tied to a specific project, will not result in noise impacts under FAA Order 1050.1F, that's the NEPA section, impacts noise-sensitive land use only identified through NEPA documentation for specific projects or through voluntary 150 process. So this next map will give you a little bit of an idea. The one on the left is our actual current existing noise contour maps. The line on the furthest outside of those bubbles is the 65 decibel line. The one on the right is the anticipation of extending out further operations changes to the runway that, if you notice, the 65 decibel line doesn't even still leave the airfield. The contours are still within the airport. So with that, we were kind of looking at it and we're saying, so what is the next step? For us to go through and blanketly start imposing navigational easement or deed restrictions to people's property right now, there's real no justification except for a possibility. We really don't have any measurements right now. All of our studies and from our master plan state that the 65 decibel level is not going to leave the airport property, not even going to leave the airport industrial park. So what we did is we're sitting back saying, okay, maybe we need to approach this a little bit differently. maybe we need to start looking at actually obtaining data that could help us identify where this could possibly occur in the future. What we're looking at doing is we're doing some research and some software to actually track aircraft. We've reached out to 2 companies. We're reaching out to another company. The software is going to be able to track our aircraft patterns around the airport, and some of these softwares will be able to track it throughout the city. They'll be able to tell us the type of aircraft, their speed, and their altitude through the ABS system. Sorry. One beautiful thing about this software, if we can find some that meets our needs and is affordable, is that it will not only help out with determining our traffic patterns that are occurring at the airport, but also determine our operational status, how many aircraft operations we have. This helps us in our grant funding. Will also help us also figure out where these planes are going for future marketing, what surfaces are most used, and if we have a citizen that is calling us up from our community and says, hey, I have a noise concern, then they could tell us their rough location and what time and what day, and through these software, we'll be able to actually find that aircraft, and from there determine, is this an actual ongoing problem that we need to start looking at addressing, or if this is a one-off issue, such as a medical helicopter responding to an emergency. So this will help us address those problems. At this current time, our majority of our noise complaint issues actually occur well away from the city, and they're usually medevac helicopters that are responding to medical emergencies. We're also looking at changes and possibly reopening this discussion with the FAA of changing our pattern altitude. It's currently 800 feet AGL over the airport, increasing it to 1,000 feet. The additional 200 feet could provide a little bit of additional buffer for anybody that's inside the area.
Most noise comes when aircraft are departing, though. So if we go from 4,200 to 4,400 feet for the pattern, is that, I mean, you're decreasing your power usage when you are coming down to pattern level. And when you're landing, your power level is even lower still. So there's less noise then. I think the concern for the navigation easement is more on departing traffic.
Even with departure traffic, our primary runway, which is designed for these larger jets that actually create high levels, your typical commercial aircraft right now under FAA standards requires their decibels to be anywhere between 85 and 109, and they're actually about to lower that even more by additional 7 decibels. Those aircraft have, and off our primary runway, is going to have roughly about a mile before they even are over any residential areas.
Correct.
The surrounding areas around the airport are designated for industrial park. So the land release for the 700 acres and the other 1,000 acres, that all has to be labeled as industrial. The FAA will not allow us to change it over to residential. It will be labeled as industrial, and it does provide that buffer.
I have a question. I agree that we're kind of blessed, shall we say, a little bit differently in a lot of airports, all the nightmares that we hear about that get shut down because there's residential property that is real close, to the airports, and we don't really have that. I think one of the things we've all been concerned about over the years is just to make sure that that never happens somehow, to make sure that there's no residential properties that can come on board or that get closer. And I think that some people complain, I don't think because of just the noise, they just are in fear of an airplane dropping on their house or something that we all don't really identify with as pilots necessarily, but it's possible. I think that it's not just noises, that they're mad about. And I do also understand that noise levels are going down with high bypass jet engines and things like that. It's much lower than it used to be. So I think it's worth still discussing and just visiting and seeing where this should be or what we may need to be careful of, just to make sure it doesn't come bite us and long after we're gone. We want to protect the airport long after we're all not even around here, to make sure it still is a viable asset.
Yeah, and that's what we're kind of looking at, that software to identify those areas. Right now, there's no clear defined area. And to impose this deed on somebody's property without proper justification, it's not going to be good. We have to be good stewards of the actual public funds of the airport. And to just go out there and just carve up a section and say possible area, it's not going to be wise use of the funds. So, sorry to just kind of give you a little bit idea of the two maps that I have up there. I actually combined two maps. The one on the bottom is the actual cities, urban zoning and planning. This entire section right here is going to be industrial park with some kind of retail to the south of it. Our primary runway, or a larger runway, extends and is over a mile before we even get to the residential areas. On the northern end, it still has over 3,000 feet before it even gets to other residential locations. We do have one spot, which is this corner right here, which is why we're kind of looking at the software to track and see how aircraft are operating over that. That is possible subject to, how can I say, future housing development. So that is the primary location that we're looking at.
And there is no doubt that there are many fewer operations that take off in that direction that would be louder going over those closer houses on the north end. Because as he pointed out, as we all know, 2-1 is the primary runway, so, and that's got a lot more or larger buffer area off the far end of 2-1, shall we say. So, percentage-wise, I don't know what the number of operations are compared, from 2-1 to 3-0.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why we're really looking at this software to help us track this information. The software will also possibly help us sit back and say, okay, we do have our increase of our jet traffic going over this area. This may be an area where we may want to look at navigation easements, or even look at in the future saying, okay, we may have to do a 150 noise study.
Right.
And that really goes through and hammers back into figuring out how loud it is going over people's houses.
So for those of you guys, we had a presentation from Scott Brackett a while back, and it's mainly, again, protection for long-term growth, where again, the nightmare scenarios are that a lot of people move in residential-wise, and they can eventually, worst-case scenario, get the airport shut down because of noise when the airport's been there for decades. Mm-hmm. And so I guess, that's the real discussion, is if this could really happen here or not.
Yeah, we have the proper buffer. Yeah. We have it. The odds of that 65 decibels going out beyond the industrial park, even beyond the airport, the only way that's going to happen if we end up having those larger A300s and MD-80s start coming and operating continuously in our property. We're not going to have those. So at this time, to try to sit back and say, okay, are we going to go through a group of these people's houses, even with the aircraft going over the houses that don't meet those noise levels? The feds are going to turn around and say there's no way of maneuvering, or saying you have to impose this, or even shut down the airport.
What kind of complaints do we get at the airport ever, if much, right now at the moment?
A lot of these complaints are several miles away from the airport.
Yeah.
And 99% of them are medical helicopters late at night responding to emergencies.
Yeah.
Responding to emergencies. And I will tell you this, is the individuals that are able to give us enough details and we're able to find those medical helicopters, we just speak to them. And our medical staff that operate those helicopters do what they can to avoid that property as best as they can without compromising their response time.
And it's almost impossible in a lot of cases, right? Because you fly between there and the hospital, you're flying over residential property all the way.
Well, it's,
So-
it's not there. It's
Yeah.
actually responding to the crash scenes like
Oh,
on
somewhere else, some
95.
other
Yeah,
direction.
up there
Okay.
on 95. That's where it is. Only other time, besides the medical helicopters, was one group that was counting the mules and donkeys in the area where they were buzzing one piece of property over in Golden Valley, which when we found out who it was and we spoke to those pilots, they're kind enough to say, we'll avoid it. And they just avoided going over that property.
Okay.
I have a question. Is it the sole criteria to get these easements? Is it purely based on the noise level?
It's going to have to be based upon noise level. When it comes to actual aircraft operating safely, the FAA, as long as they don't penetrate it. Now, if the public decides they want to shut down an airport, they have the ability to. It's going to be a long-term event. It's not something that could just happen instantly due to grant obligations. But when it comes to these actual easements, when it comes to land use and compatibility, it's noise.
Okay.
It is noise. Noise is what predominantly impacts aircraft's flight patterns, approaches, and how could I say, and also determines what could be built next to or close to an airport. A lot of these airports that are creating these noise or have these noise compatibility issues is because they were not on the ball when residential started encroaching. We've been very fortunate where even our zoning and commission says, or zoning and planning, community development, they say, no, we have a buffer around you guys in certain areas and we have it there on purpose. They are completely understanding and they do know if something pops up, such as a request for a school or a library or hospital, they're going to keep us in the loop on this so we don't allow one of those buildings that are non-compatible for noise use to be built underneath an approach path.
Yeah, I can't even remember where I heard this, but there was a school at one point, as I understand it, approved by the county to be on the approach path to runway 21. And I don't recall who I heard that from, but it was confirmed. So this may go back many years, but I heard that and I found that very disturbing, actually.
But we also have a junior high off the end of 3 by, it's probably 2.5, 3 miles away, but it's still on the end of 3.
As you're departing 2-1, you're saying, yeah, obviously, yeah.
And just keep in mind, 65 decibels, 60 decibels is an actual normal conversation. Our 65 decibel average doesn't even leave the fence line.
Still, if I understand your presentation correctly, to ensure that we have an airport here in the year 2300, it's a good idea to have the navigation easement in place before we have development of residential property close to the airport.
Right now, the navigation easement cannot be justified.
So
It
we can't
cannot-
put it in because,
It cannot be
because somebody
justified.
says it's not justified?
Because it is not meeting the criteria at this time. We need more research into this. That's why we're looking at this software to sit back and say, okay, we are having jets that move through this area. If we have to put something in, then we'll have a defined location. Right now, to sit back and go through there and take a section that's 3 miles by 4 miles and redo all those properties, we just don't have a justification for it.
These industrial areas that are kind of off the end of the runway that we're going to be developing at some point, do they get notified or navigate, does it even count for them, navigation easements?
Nope.
It doesn't, it's
Nope.
only
The
residents?
The only thing that's imposed by them is how high they could build.
Okay. It's just an FAA requirement, obviously. It's
Just
a-
residential schools, hospitals, the only thing that the FAA really focus on when it's noise.
Okay.
And it requires a 65 decibel average. Now, just to kind of, the section on questions is to give an idea of why this is so, why we're hearing a lot right now on navigational easements, especially throughout the industry. Just curious, does anybody know what that airport at the top left is?
Aren't they all in California?
know the upper right-hand one is. That's
Yeah.
Santa Monica, I believe.
That
Orange
looks-
County?
Top left is Prescott. Prescott. They allowed houses to be built within 600 feet of their runway. That's why they have noise issues. And if you actually go on their website, they'll say we're the top 5 most busiest airport in Arizona and top 20 inside the United States. And they've had houses built right on the edge. Our closest possible location for a house to be built is over 3,000, 4,000 feet, and that's on the northern end of our non-primary runway. On our primary runway right now, it's going to be on the southern end by about 1.2 miles. And they receive commercial traffic. The one on the right, Santa Monica, yes. This one is closing because this is what happens when you allow houses to be built. This is one of the leading factors of why FAA is now requiring these massive environmental assessments for these land releases to ensure that this does not happen. That's why with our current land release, they are requesting us to go into further detail of what you're going to be using the land for. So they hold the sponsor accountable for what the land will be used for. And then on the bottom middle, that's Sedona's airport. Their closest house is around a little over 1,000 feet away from their approach end, from one of the runways. So a lot of these airports do have these noise problems, but they're because they allow the houses to be built so close. Ours, we're very fortunate for the industrial park because it provides a very nice size buffer. And then also with forward thinking with our city planning and zoning, they add that additional buffer. Now, as I said, we're still looking at software to better track this stuff to where we could see if we do need to go after something. We'll be able to identify it instead of arbitrarily just going out there and doing this to random properties. But we need that information to narrow it down. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, back to the reports. As I say, we're waiting on ADOT to get back with us for their share of the taxiway Delta plan. Delta share, they just need to sign that, and we'll receive the 4% share from them. The land release, the actual industrial park master development land release, we've had significant headway on the development plan. Our staff consultants have completed a lot of inventory work, some traffic analysis, and they even started reaching out to our marketing, economic development team to start working on a marketing program for the airport. The first part was the actual inventory that's covering all zoning. That covers current marketing, current businesses, so they obtained about 80% of that information. When they attain that 80% of the information, now they're starting to reach out to the respective areas such as utility development, roads planning, marketing for the area. So we do have a lot of headway on this. It is moving fast. Please keep in mind that as they're obtaining some of this information that is necessary for the environmental assessment for the airport or for the industrial park expansion, they're taking that information, plugging it into the EA. So even if the industrial park master development plan is still being worked on, we'll be able to actually submit the EA before the master plan is fully developed. So we're just taking the information we need from the industrial park and getting that information as soon as possible and plugging it into the EA. For hangars, hangar A, we have 5 total hangar A's for the executive hangars, and occupied are 5 with 5 on the wait list. For the B and C hangars, we currently have 3 available. We have 16 people on the wait list with 3 relocations. We have started going down through the wait list. Some of the individuals that are at the top of the wait list do not have aircraft at this time. Some of them, it's going to be about, they're estimating 10 months to a year before they get an aircraft. So we're going back down through that list. And then the first person that has an aircraft available will have first dibs on one of those hangars. For the D hangars, only 8 are occupied, 2 are currently not occupied. And we have 0 on the wait list for the D hangars. For the cover tie downs, 10 are occupied, and we have 3 on the wait list.
I was out there yesterday, and I saw 3 spaces that were not occupied and have not been occupied for a while. But they are rented?
Yes, sir. On our books, they are rented and they are paying. Now we can go back and I could have my guys double verify those spots, and then we could reach out to those people that are currently with those spots and see if they have an aircraft that they're using the locations.
Yeah, because I think 10 has been open for quite a while.
We can definitely review that.
All this year. Part of last year.
Mr. Breckenridge, I have a question. Did you,
Since I've seen anybody there.
sorry,
That's okay.
did you talk about the rehab of the areas of the, near the EAA gate and the, did you already?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're scheduling that for 2024.
Sorry, I missed it. Thank you. I guess the question I have would be Gate 300, because that's a gravelly area also, which is the main gate near the care flight or whatever it is. Does that need to be also on the budget somewhere for?
Well, we have the 2 main gates.
Yeah.
We did not select gate 300 from this at this time, because
Okay.
the 2 other gates are the primary gates that we've been hearing requests from our
Okay.
hangar tenants and other tenants. We may see if we could go ahead and, if we have some leftover funds, next year to see if we could squeeze those hangars in. There is a possibility, that additional gate area, but the T hangars and the hangar near the EAA is the first 2 ones that we're scheduling.
Thank you.
So the next section, we're 58% way through this year. We've received a grand total of over $1 million in revenue, and we've only spent a little over $500,000. Total revenue from the airport is $970,000, $742, whereas industrial park, we've received $96,000. Airport expenditures, we've only spent $553,945 for the airport expenditures, and then, which is only 33%, along with the industrial park, which is, we only spent 2.4% of that. Expect with the airport expenditures to start going up when the draw site kicks off, because a lot of that is focused towards the draw site. A large amount, Bennett is working something with the industrial park right now. Hopefully we get everything blessed, and then you'll start seeing those expenditures being really heavily used. For actual fuel sales report, there's a side-by-side compared to last year's fuel sales reports. We are still seeing a very much increase by month by month by month. And hopefully next year, with the Super Bowl occurring in Las Vegas for the month of February, you'll see a drastic uptick in fuel sales, because we are right now being viewed as an overflow spot for their private aircraft.
Did you have a chance to meet with Wheels Up yet?
No, Wheels Up is one company that is discussing about using our airport as an overflow spot for their private jets. Unfortunately, when they were coming up here, they could not get through the snow, so they had to turn around.
Okay.
So that meeting has been pushed back.
You might be sure and tell them that we don't have any snow removal equipment at the airport.
I'm pretty sure they are aware. So does anybody have any questions about the reports?
I have a question. This is maybe kind of related to the gate code change, but the pedestrian gate adjacent to the terminal building, we happened to be out there this morning and we could not key in from the outside. And I was just curious if that is meant to be, or
Was this one on the north side or south side?
it's the south side.
Okay. No, that should be functioning.
Okay.
We'll have to have the guys take a look at it.
Next to the tower area.
Yeah, that has been one that we have replaced in the past about twice,
Oh,
and we
okay.
may have to replace that one again.
But then will that also be getting changed this month with the other gates?
Yes, sir, it will be.
Okay.
The only gate code that we really do not have targeted is going to be the EAA's gate when we give them a pedestrian code. We're going to let them have their own code where we just have a copy.
Any other questions for Manager Breckenridge? Okay, thank you very much. Announcements by commission members.
None for me.
None?
Tim, will defer to you. Do you want to talk about the upcoming?
About that.
Okay.
April 1st will be the air show at Laughlin Bullhead Airport, and the Aviation Heritage Center of Kingman will be an exhibitor at the air show. So and that's the organization that is working on funding a new museum and education center at Kingman Airport.
I don't have anything.
The Emmanuel Christian Academy approached the local EAA chapter and asked if they could do a field trip to the airport. And we said we'd be glad to do that. And we, in early February, had the 7th and 8th grade class come out 2 days in a row, and we gave them a brief education in a ground school. We followed up with careers in aviation, and then gave them airplane rides like we do with the Young Eagles rallies. And all the kids were very polite, very nice. They wrote beautiful cursive, which I didn't know they taught that in school anymore, cursive thank you letters. So we were very pleased to have them come. the EAA chapter is going to be having a Young Eagles rally for the children of Kingman and the surrounding areas on April 22nd, and that'll be at the Kingman Airport. And usually we get anywhere from 40 to 120 kids. So if you know any children ages 8 up to 18, you can encourage them to put that on their calendar if they're interested in aviation.
Would this be at the terminal building again, like it was?
Well, we haven't had a chance to talk with management about whether or not we can still use the terminal,
Okay.
but I don't anticipate a big problem with that.
Okay.
Do you anticipate a problem with that, Mr. Breckenridge?
I do not see any. I just need to follow up with our facilities guys to find out and verify when they're going to be conducting those renovations inside the terminal building.
Okay.
If
If-
that falls through, then I'm happy enough to sit back and we can work something out for the bay of the airport admin building.
Well, or we could also have it at our hangar, or we could have it possibly over at Arizona. So there's plenty of options. If we are able to have it at the terminal, that would be, I think, the best place. And this time it might be good if we let the restaurant know in advance. They seemed surprised last year. That's all I have. We would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second it.
All in favor, discussion. I don't see any. All in favor, signify it by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.